I have a couple questions for you. First one is, what is your earliest memory?
So I remember when President Kennedy was shot.
Oh,
And he ended up dying after that. But I was in the kitchen. My mother was cooking supper, and it came over the radio. We did not own a TV, and so it came over the radio. And when it came over the radio, my mother slumped to the ground and leaned against the kitchen cupboard and just sobbed. And I just remember watching her cry so hard, and that's why she was crying.
oh wow.
I know.
Do you
So
remember how old you
I
were?
was about 4 or 5.
About 4 or 5. Okay. And then, do you have a smell that gives you a memory?
Well, my mom usually made a beef roast every Sunday, and because we usually had company over every Sunday for noon meal, so she would whisper to me in church, go home and run home and check the roast. And I didn't really know what she meant, but I would just run home, pick up the cover and say, oh yeah, I was there. And it's not burning. And so, but that roast smelled so good every Sunday.
That's great. So, do you know about what age you would be?
I would say about 7 or 8. That's when
Okay.
she started trusting me to go check the roast.
That's awesome. And then, do you have a memory from school?
Actually, I do, and I've actually told some of the kids that I had a best friend, Shirley, and her last name was Myers and my last name was Martins. And so we were in the M section together, but we never got to be in the same classroom together. And so when I was about in the 5th or 6th grade, we showed up for the first day of school, and we were both in the same classroom. And we were so excited, and I was MA, and she was right behind me in the ME
Nice.
chair, and but I know that we were super trouble, because the very next day, she wasn't in that class anymore. Oh, no. And we found out her mother had called the school and asked to switch Shirley out of my class.
Oh, that's funny.
So,
How old?
I was
old
about
would you
in
be?
I was about 10.
It's about 10.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you ever have a nickname, and who called you that?
Actually, Shirley's dad was big on nicknames. Shirley's name was Sam, and her sister's name was Chuck. And her dad called me Penelope Pitstop. I have no idea why.
Okay.
So I probably was about in the 2nd grade when he started calling me that.
Okay, so about 7?
Yes, about 7.
Okay, great. And what is one place where you were really happy?
I was really happy at my grandma's house, and she lived about an hour away. And when I was about 7 years old, my mom and dad let me ride the bus from Kalamazoo all the way to Muskegon.
Wow.
And they put me right behind the driver with a little lunch, and the driver said, oh yes, he would watch me. And I had an hour ride.
Wow.
But when I got to there, my grandma and grandpa would always take me to the beach, and we would watch the boats and the waves, and my grandma loved the garden, and so we would spend tons of time in her garden.
Oh, fun.
And we played lots and lots of card games, so she taught me all the card games. So
That's awesome.
it was really fun.
What was something that you kept for a long time, or that you wish you kept?
So I used to have dolls, and my cousin Denise and I sometimes had the same dolls because we were about the same age. And whenever we would get together, we would always play like our dolls were cousins and we were cousins. And so one year we got the same doll, and her name was Velvet. And she had a purple velvet dress on, and she had blonde hair, and if you pushed her belly button, her hair would pull out and it would be really long.
Sure.
So we played with our velvets together, And I still have that velvet doll.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So I still have it.
That's great. How old were you when you mostly played with it?
I would say we were probably about 7 or 8.
Okay. Okay. And then what was a challenge that you overcame, and how old were you then?
Well, I would say a challenge that I learned to handle is that I'm deaf in one ear. And that happened about when I was 5. And I had a really severe earache, and it pinched the nerve inside my ear. And my parents took me to all kinds of testing, and I was in a sound booth, and they would, push a button, and I never heard a thing on my right side, in my right ear. So I've been deaf ever since, and that's on that side. So I had to learn in school where to sit so that I could hear the teacher. So the teacher always had to kind of be on this side. Otherwise, I didn't pay attention at all. So, and I still do that now. I make sure I'm on the right side of people so that I can hear them talking. And so I think that's just a challenge that has gone through life with me, and I've learned how to deal with it.
Yeah. And then what advice would you give to kids today?
I have lots of advice. How shall I pick one? So I think one of the best thoughts is to be careful who you allow to influence you. There's such a lot of talk about being an influencer or a YouTuber, but I think you have to be super careful of who you allow to almost make decisions for what you want to do, what you want to be, what you want to read, what you want to wear. All of those things, you are the leader of you, and you should be able to decide those kinds of things without listening to that person and that person, especially on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or anything like that. To be very careful who you allow to influence you.
That's great. Thank you so much.